We'll start in a minute. I had a problem with my system. Okay, we'll start in a minute. I had a problem with my system. Okay, we're good to go. Okay, we're good to go. Okay, Ms. Tiger, can you please put on your camera? And Madam Bello, can you put on your camera? Okay, I'm 3 minutes late, so I'm going on air.
It's exciting, it's educative, and engaging. Get master information on Wisdom Masterclass webinar, 7 o'clock every Sunday evening with your host, Jake Opele, CEO and founder, the Albino Foundation. Wisdom Masterclass webinar live on Zoom, Facebook, and other social media platforms. Topics that will scare you out, take you right to the next level. For more information, send email to Jake at albinofoundation.org or call 0803 533 5444. That is 0803 533 5444. Get reality on a virtual platform. Join the virtual trade. Don't be told. Get wisdom only on Wisdom Masterclass webinar, poised to take you to the next level.
Good evening. Welcome to Wisdom Masterclass. I want to apologize. We started a bit late today. I had a bit of a technical hitch, and but thank God we're back on air. I have very interesting guests tonight, and we'll be looking at the very disturbing rates of drug abuse, substance abuse. What are the causes? Why are our youths and even our elderly, why are they so neck deep into drug use and drug abuse? And I have very interesting guests tonight to walk the tightrope of this topic. Many of them have very interesting, profound personal experience. They will share as we bring them on. Don't forget that we will continue the second edition next week. So keep a date with us. But for now, let's stay on this week. There's been some, epileptic internet disruption. But then the first to come on is Mrs. Tega. She has very interesting story, very interesting profile. And Mrs. Tega, I will let you kick off while we wait for other guests as they sign in. So talk to us about yourself and tell us your reflection about the topic that we're treating today. Good evening and welcome.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible enough.
You are.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Tega Omogo, and then I am a substance use recovery coach. I didn't read that in school. I actually stumbled on that from experience, going through the things that I had gone through, and then coming to a point where I realized that if I continued to bury my head in sand and decided I was going to self preserve, we were going to have a huge problem in our hands. The truth about this is that drug use is a global endemic. It is not something that we should be treating with kids' gloves. It's a conversation that we should be having. And I am glad that I am on this platform. I'm glad that these conversations have been raised. I'm glad that it is aired in as many places as it can be aired, because it is a conversation that needs to be addressed. Thank you very much.
Okay. Let me bring in Hawa Bello to also introduce herself and make an intervention. Madam, you have the floor.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me. I know it just went dark now. I'm sorry about that. NEPA just
It's okay, we can see.
My name is Howard. I'm so glad to be here. This is a topic that is very, very important to me. This is something that is dear to my heart. So I'm so glad that you have invited me here to come talk about something that is really, really dear to my heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Incidentally, one of our guests is trying to reach me on phone. I'm sure he's probably having problem, but let me go back to Mrs. Tega. Tega, if you can come back on camera, I have a question for you. This is very interesting. Ms. Tega, you are a substance abuse coach. And you made a statement to say you didn't dabble into it. Probably you have some experience that brought you into it. What is it that brought you into this very wonderful and interesting service?
One of the things that I say all the time to people is, if I had any of these conversations, if I had listened to any of these conversations, maybe as at a time when I was at the time when I was a teenager, young adult, I probably wouldn't have gone through all of the things that I went through. I always start with saying that I wanted to be a lawyer. I really wanted to be a lawyer growing up. I think I walked into my uncle's chambers as a child. And when I walked into the place, I saw a lot of books. I saw books, I saw his robe, and I saw his wig, and I fell in love. And for me, I just felt like this is what it is I'm going to do with the rest of my life. Unfortunately, because I wasn't guided, and because these conversations were not as I think it's been associated with a lot of stigma. So it's still not something that's been spoken about for a long time. So at that time, it appeared like, okay, well, if you're doing those things, you're just having fun. But we didn't understand that there were a lot of reactions and, consequences to a lot of these things. Nobody starts out with the thought that I'm going to try substance and then I would remain in substance use. We don't understand the deep effects of substance use. So many times we think it's something we can dabble in and out of. People just think, okay, I can just start smoking, start drinking, and then after a while, I'm good. Unfortunately, your case might be like mine, because I was one of those very intelligent children. I was very gifted academically, and I also had a social side. Unfortunately, because I wasn't able to do the balance, I wasn't able to strike a balance between both. My academics suffered, and I mean, there's only so much partying you can probably party. Like they say, there are different types of drugs: party drugs, study drugs, and all of that. Now, one of the things that is very significant to me is the fact that there are gateways to drug use, and many people don't. I think they underestimate the power of the gateways to drug use. one of there are a few of them I like to, use. There's personal trauma, there's family dysfunction, there's peer pressure, there's societal pressure. I think I went through the ranks. I went through the ranks of the family dysfunction. Well, it wasn't family dysfunction per se, not like my family was separated and everything was haywire. It was just a clear case of, at the time when I was younger, my mom left Nigeria and left for the UK. And for a while, I didn't even realize that that in itself had an effect on me until much later. It was we had a BCP conference done by Sam Obafemi. I'm sure many of you know him here. It was at that conference that I started to unearth and excavate the things that could have led me to what it was that was going on. I was dealing with childhood experiences that kept rearing their ugly heads. And so using substance now became my coping mechanism for being able to, stay afloat generally.
So would you be kind enough? You never know who is watching. That probably at your level. Then would you be kind enough to mention some of these substances? What are they like? To me, they sound like academic. What are the practical things that people do even these days?
There are a lot of things that when we say substances, at the time, people used to think that, well, hard drugs, if you're doing hard drugs alone, when you're doing cocaine and heroin, that's when it is that you're doing drugs. If you're doing marijuana, then it's not noteworthy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not noteworthy. Yes, some people think that if you're doing opioids, for instance, in fact, the rise in opioids in recent times has been alarming. I think that's the one that that resonates with me most.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of those that, in fact, I started from they call them gateway drugs,
Mm-hmm.
smoking, drinking, just
Mm-hmm.
regular, partying, because
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to stimulate yourself because you're going for a party. And what we used to say at the time, I know we're talking to a broad audience, international, but locally, if you were in our, local universities, what they would say is, I need to dirty my eyes before I go for the party. But what this means is I need to stimulate myself to be able to get into the party mode, because sometimes you probably are not in the party mode, but hey, it's time for party. We're in university. Freedom, hallelujah. That was my middle name. I just felt I was free, because when I got into school, there was no guidance necessarily. I was glad that there was nobody watching me like a hawk. I'm the youngest of 8 children. And of course, you'll be watched like a hawk. And I have 5 brothers. So everybody's watching to see what's going on with you. But by the time I had left home and gone into school, I was glad that nobody was watching me anymore. So I just felt like, okay, if I'm free, I will live this freedom to the fullest. Unfortunately, I hadn't been taught enough coping skills to be able to handle both sides of my personality. I didn't have enough training and skills in me to be able to handle it. So of course my academics suffered, and at some point I had to drop out of school.
And this Miss Tega, this is all because of the effect of the drugs that you were personally involved, right?
Oh yes. Because if you one of the things to look out for in when you start to suspect that your ward or your child is doing drugs is absenteeism from school. When their academics start to suffer, it means that something else is taking their attention. And it's best to actually investigate closer to see what it is that is taking their attention. So I had started from the gateway drugs, from the smoking and drinking and, smoking marijuana, to after a while, I started, taking opioids. It was really bad. It was really bad. In fact, at some point I used to tell, when there's a song that came out and they were talking about codeine diet. I looked at it and I felt that they were referring to me.
What is codeine diet? That's interesting. Chris eBay, if you can put on your camera, and I'll give you the floor. What is this codeine diet? You have an amazing testimony, Tega. And I'm sorry, looks like I'm drilling you, but
No, it's
tell
fine,
us,
sir. It's fine.
what is this codeine diet?
Codeine is the, what's it called now? The cough syrup, Benylin with codeine. Any
Mhm.
cough syrup that has codeine in it. I think there's codeine is it's supposed is a painkiller, is an ingredient in a painkiller or in the cough syrup. I think it aids with sleep. It has components in it that actually gives you the euphoria. That's the
Mhm.
reason why many people take it.
Wow. Chris, if you can put on your camera, Chris eBay. Chris eBay has been doing a lot in terms of give advocacy and rehabilitation. But looks like he's having problems. But when Chris comes up, Tega, it's
Yes,
you.
please.
Are you married
Yes, I am. Yes.
and you have children?
Not yet, but soon.
Okay. So what would you say were happening to you at the point that you were neck deep into this, drug use, and yet you couldn't get out of it, and nobody could talk you out of it? What was it like? What is it that was drawing you away from people?
The truth is that it's not like anybody was trying to talk me out of it because nobody
Mm,
knew that I was doing what I was doing.
mm,
I found a way to hide what I was doing for so long, actually for 13 years, and nobody knew what I was doing. So it was easy to, because nobody was paying attention to me. Like I said, my mother had left for the UK. So I started living with my older sister. And after a while, I went into boarding school. I went into boarding school, I think at about 10 going on 11. So by the time I was 10 going on 11, I mean, I'd left the house more or less. You only come home for holiday. And
mm.
there is only so much anybody can really see when you come home for holiday. So it was easy to hoodwink everyone for a very long time. The only time I think where they could have suspected was when I failed exams woefully. I went from being one of the best students in Lagos State to someone that came out with 4 P's and 4 F's when it was time to write, you know, SSC exams.
Hold on. Amazing. How old were you with all this experience? How old were you?
Okay, I think I started dabbling and experimenting maybe like 14. Started experimenting with drinking and smoking at 14. But by the time I was 17, I had, started socially using. And then by the time I was like 18,
Hold on. I'm excited, but at the same time, I want to make sure that my audience gets the right information. What is this socially?
If when you want to talk, remove it and just
Yeah.
on
What
your
is this
audio and talk to people.
socially? What did you say? What did you? I can't get it. There was a language you used.
social
Social,
using, recreational
social
using, yes.
using. What is
Yes,
this
yes.
social using?
Okay, this happens with a lot of people actually. There are a lot of people that actually socially use. Like when you go for parties, you just use. When you're
Mhm,
in the midst of if a set of friends, you use, but you are not using on your own. I
mhm,
won't out of my way go out to look for drugs to use. At that time, you're actually not even addicted. You're just using because it appears like okay, you're going for a party or you're
mhm,
hanging out and
mhm.
stuff, or because the
Or you
people
don't
you're
have money.
not necessarily. Maybe I got like recently I went for a party
Mhm,
and my old friend's party, and I
mhm,
got there and all majority of the people there were using.
mhm,
I know one of the friends that was there, she's
mhm,
not a she's not addicted to any substance,
mhm.
but when
She's a
she's in the
social
midst
user.
of people
Mhm,
using, she
mhm,
just uses. But on her own, she would never go out of her way to get
mhm.
any drugs. She would never use her money to buy. So social using is, when you're using just for recreational use, nothing major.
So can you go from that status to addiction?
I always say that the line is very thin because
Mm,
you go from experimenting to
mhm.
social use to heavy use to addiction, and the slope is very slippery. You can go from 0 to 100 very quickly.
Wow. Miss
Good
Howard,
good evening, Uncle Jack. Good
yes,
evening.
Chris. Yes, Chris, you have been listening to us and hearing from this wonderful, very bold young woman. Um, I'm going to come back to you. Chris, I want to talk, I want to know what your experience has been. Ms. Hawa, you're signing in with two systems. Chris, I want to know what your experience has been, being in the field, intervening for drug usage and advocating for them. What has been your experience?
Hello?
Chris, we can hear you. We can hear you loud and clear. Just that you need to put on your camera. It doesn't matter if you are in darkness. You need to put on your camera.
I'm not. I don't have. There's no light here. Is a problem. I don't have light.
Don't worry. We'll see you. Just put on your camera, or just go ahead and speak.
Okay. Can you come up? Can you come again with the question, please?
Now, I wanted to know what has been your experience. You have been advocating for, the issue of hard drugs, especially among the youth, and you've done extensive work in the country, outside the country, at the UN level. What had been your experience? Okay, we've lost Chris. Okay, so let's go back. I'm going to come back to Tega, but let's talk, Mrs. Howard. Tell us what.
Hello.
Okay, Chris, can you come? Okay, Howard. While
Yes.
Chris is getting ready, yeah. Well, I don't know if you have any personal experience, but then you've been taking care of people who have personal experience. What has it been like? Miss Hawa, can you hear us? Okay, she seems to be having a connection problem. Chris.
Of people who use drugs?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I said, if I understand your question correctly, you were asking what is it like to take care of people who use drugs? Is that what you said?
Yes. What has been your experience? Is there any personal story you can share with us or experience in your professional field?
Okay. Well, you see, drug use therapy, drug use treatment generally is one of the most expensive treatments. That's the truth. And that's why we always advocate that people don't get to the level of addiction. Because when you get to the level of addiction, treatment is very expensive and it's not easy. It's a really, really tough work. It's really, really hard to treat addiction generally. Aside from the fact that addiction is a relapsing disease. What I mean is you think you're fine and then you go back to it again, and because you are constantly in recovery, it's not cured. You can't be cured in the true sense of it. So the people are constantly in recovery. And when you're constantly in recovery, it means that illness, just like you never get that you have to constantly be on medication. Is practically from addiction now, so I can go back to taking alcohol socially, for example, or I can go back to taking weed socially, for example. It's not possible, except you want to go back to your previous ways of full addiction. So you can say, for example, an alcoholic cannot say that, okay, I'm fine now, let me be taking one shot, or let me take one bottle of beer or something. You are likely to spiral back or even worse to what brought you into treatment. So from that one bottle of beer,
okay, this is almost like how this is a internet problem. Okay, we're really having problems with your internet connection. Chris, are you able to speak now? Because
go
Yeah. Can I
your
come back?
15 bottles or
I'll
your
come back
20.
to you.
Generally treat.
I'll come back to you. Let me get
Okay, you can hear me again?
Yes, your internet, you keep going on and off. Maybe you need to sign up and sign in back. Chris, can you then speak to the issue now?
Okay. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
I'm very sorry. We've had a very poor network. Progress Lagos. It's been a very bad network here. So please, I'm very, very sorry if it goes. In response to your question, my experience about our advocacy of drug and substance abuse issues regarding our advocacy in the part of is majorly a thing of denials.
Okay, I've lost Chris. How can we? Okay, Chris is back. Chris, can you hear me? Chris, we lost you.
I can hear you. I can hear you, sir.
Yes, go ahead. You brought up a very interesting issue, the issue of denial. Go ahead.
Yes, on drug and substance abuse issue, to a large extent, has really exposed the endemic nature of although it has been a thing of denials from especially the addicts, be it from the parents, from the family, and the addicts themselves. You know, nobody, especially no family in Nigeria, wants to admit that they have their subject or their wards is having an addiction problem. So the issue of advocacy has really come to kind of expose and also encourage families to come up with solution, to come up with their problems, you know, to expose their problems when it arises, you know. So advocacy here, although it's not on a massive note because of the challenges inherent, but it has gone a long way in also exposing the endemic nature of drug and substance abuse in Nigeria.
Okay, fantastic, Chris. I'm gonna just open up, throw a general question, and any of you can pick it up. You know, can we say that even the situation at hand, the pandemic, the COVID-19, which have allowed many of these words and even married people and students who don't have the liberty of going out because of the situation. I think it has also increased the situation. And Ms. Tega, can you comment on that? Do you feel that the lockdown also have contributed to even greater number of users?
Absolutely, sir. One of the things that I'd like to say is that beyond the fact that a lot of people have been using, I think that the lockdown brought many people in touch with a lot of feelings and emotions that they had probably been suppressing, and because of the mental health aspect of being trapped, the fear of uncertainty and all of that, many people resorted to coping with drug use. And one of the things that happened around, I started a Facebook series on doing live sessions. One of the things that made me, start talking about this was during the lockdown, I had said my introduction was, in this lockdown, you're going to come in contact with three people. You're going to come in contact with yourself, because I mean, we were all stuck in the house, and many of us have been too busy to even stay at home and come in contact. We don't even understand our own company. So you will come in contact with yourself, you will come in contact with your spouse, and you will come in contact with your children. And in this time, indeed, I can't even count the number of phone calls that I got when people kept calling and saying, I just found out that my spouse is doing drugs. I just found out that my child is doing drugs. So the pandemic and the lockdown brought many people in touch with their inadequacies and the fact that they had no coping mechanisms to deal with these inadequacies. And then many of them that were social users also decided, or let me say, were forced into using constantly because of the need to escape, more or less. And then many of them were found out because, I mean, at that time, you can't go anywhere. And being that addiction is a brain disease, it is addiction is a habit you have formed that turns around to form you. You were the one running after the addiction, like I heard today, and now the addiction is the one pulling you. No matter how much you try to hide these things, it is like smoke. It will come out. It will come out. You will not even know how to help yourself. I know a father that found out recently that his son had been drinking bottles of codeine. And when he found out, it was when they called me and I was at the house, trying to talk. He told me to come and see the side of his house. So I went to the side. There's an empty space. They built their house. I think the next one is a plot of land. It's empty. Nobody's building there. And so they saw bottles and bottles of codeine. So the father said when the first time they cut all the grass there, that he thought that they were about to open a factory for codeine. And so they were gathering the bottles. He didn't realize that it was his son who was the manufacturer of the bottles. The boy had, every time he drank, he would just toss it through the window into those places. And when I asked the boy what was going on, he said he was afraid. He didn't know how to deal with, being at home. He didn't know how to deal with the lockdown. He didn't know how to deal with the whole uncertainty and all of that. And so that's how he was coping with his confusion and his pain and his anxieties. So yes, the lockdown was a major contribution. When people don't know what it is how to deal with, uncertainty and their, anxieties and panic, they resort to things that can help them, they resort to external things that can help them cope with their present situation. Yes.
Okay, so I was going to ask Mrs. Bello. Mrs. Bello, don't worry about the light. Just be on camera. We're seeing your face. Don't worry about the light. But Ms. Bello, I wanted to get a professional impact of substance like codeine. What does it do to an individual? Are you there? Okay. I think Ms. Bello is trying to get herself situated. Chris, can you hear me? So, Mrs. Tega, I'm with you. Please explain to us, and we're going to do that in about a minute. Explain to us what are the effects of this drug we've been talking about, and I wanted to know more about what are these substances, what are, and even terms, terminologies that children and youth uses to spread and give these drugs to themselves. Let's start with the terminology. They have specific words and expression that they use. Can you remember any of them?
And well, there are different names. They call, like marijuana, for instance, can be called Mary Jane. They call marijuana Mary Jane. You hear them say brown sugar is heroin, for instance. Wow. Cocaine is, what's it called now? Brown sugar is heroin. Cocaine is cocoa. Then brownies, they call brownies. Those are edibles. They're is marijuana that they mix with to make a pastry, sort of. So you can
hold on, Ms. Tega, Mrs. Tega. I hear cocoa, And you know, there's been a song that is popularized, and they sing the Coco.
No, it's not the same. It's not the same with
They
that.
don't have
That's
any
the
connection.
band. I don't think he has any
Yes.
connection. No. I
Okay.
think no, the band is talking about something else. The band just is actually sexualizing the thing. It's talking about
Okay.
something else. That's not what it
Okay.
is.
Okay.
But that's Coco. There are different names. Mary Jane. There is okay, like for Refnol, for instance, Rohypnol. They call it Ruchis or Ruchi. They call Tramadol Trams or TM. They have different names, coded
You
names.
know why I'm
Schoolboy.
asking you this? You know
No,
why
sir.
I'm asking you this? There may be parents who are on this call, or maybe you're watching me on social media, and you are at home. Maybe your child's friend comes in and they're using these languages. You need to know what they are saying. You need to know, because these young chaps and even adults, have a tendency to confuse you, by the words that they use in getting what they're getting. So there's a need for you to know when these exchange of words or phrases are being used within you, so that you know where your child is going. So tell me, um, what are the things that a user can do that will attract a non-user? What are their body languages? What are the things that they say? What's the attraction? What is it that can bring somebody into this kind of vices?
One of the things that I say all the time is that we need to start, talking to our celebrities and the people, our celebrities and the people that are influential, social media influencers. They are the ones that our children are actually looking at, because in these days we realize that our children are more interested in popularity than values. So if you check what's going on, a child will be thinking, if somebody has an accident, the first thing a child is thinking about doing is whipping out their phone and taking a picture so that they can post it on Instagram, be the first person who has posted it so that they can have enough likes. Likes are more important to them. That's why I'm talking about popularity over values. So if we are going to start having these conversations, we're going to start having our children understand that it is important to create values. Values are more important than being popular. Those are things that are long lasting. Those are things that you can live with and do with for the rest of your life. They add more to your life than popularity, for instance. So our social media influencers have made this thing appear like it's so cool. One of the things I know that happened to me when I was younger, I used to watch, I think there was a movie I watched or something, and I saw how the lady handled the cigarettes. And then every time I look at myself and say, God, she looks so cool, the way she held the cigarettes. I constantly had at the back of my mind that she had red painted nails, and the way she handled it, took it to her mouth. We need to start making them understand that the fact that it is done does not necessarily mean that it is good to do. And then when they're doing their videos, I know a boy that said to me that he gets inspiration when he's high, that he only gets inspiration to do music when he's high. And then if you're going to be saying stuff like that, people that listen to you will now, somebody, okay, like recently, I'm a teens teacher in a teens church. And one of the boys in the teens church is a very good dancer, talented dancer. And then so he dances with the dance troops and then a certain dance troupe. And then one day they call him and tell him that he gets tired too easily, that they need to give him something that would help him not get tired so easily, and that they know that he's very good at this dance. Instead of him to miss out because he's getting tired, let them give him something that will stimulate him to stay firing on all cylinders and still be able to dance. And then they gave him tramadol. Wow. Thankfully, we had this conversation in church. I had talked about it in the teens church. They had made me, talk about drug use and everything. So it was easy for him to come up and say, look, Auntie, this was going on. This is what they offered me. And I told him, what's more important to you? I couldn't force him to say no. I can't force him to say no, because he can tell me and I'll tell him, no, you can't do that. And he'll leave my presence and he'll go back and use it. Because at that time, What's important to him is being popular among the people that are telling him to do this. One phrase that I never forgot that stuck to me was when they said, addicted people like to get other people addicted. It's like hurting people hurt other people. Somehow it's like a collective thing. Let's just come together and do this thing together. They say misery loves company. So it's more or less the same thing. They just find a way to gather themselves. We have found a way to glamorize getting high. We have found a way to glamorize, doing the wrong things and making them appear like they're the right things. How else will it be that someone will say that they will get high, they will want to get high to be able to have inspiration? So when we have people like Majek Fashek of blessed memory, we use those as examples and say he probably got inspiration from using drugs. But look at the long-term effects.
He used drug a lot.
Yes,
Okay.
and look at the long-term effects and look at how we ended up. So
exactly. Mrs. Bello, I'm going to come back to you and ask you a question and then open up the line for, this is very interesting. I have just about 18 minutes to go. I'm going to just take a break. When we come back, I'll ask you to tell us what is it that when you're treating people, what are the symptoms? What is it that a parent who is watching today will see in a child and know that this child needs help? So stand by. When I come back, we'll continue the conversation.
It's exciting, it's educative, and engaging. Get master information on Wisdom Masterclass webinar, 7 o'clock every Sunday evening with your host, Jake Ebele, CEO and founder of the Albino Foundation. Wisdom Masterclass webinar live on Zoom, Facebook, and other social media platforms. Topics that will scare you out, take you right to the next level. For more information, send email to jake@albinofoundation.org or call 0803-533-5444. That is 0803-533-5444. Get reality on a virtual platform. Join the virtual trade. Don't be told. Get wisdom only on Wisdom Masterclass webinar, poised to take you to the next level.
Okay, this is Wisdom Masterclass, and we've been dealing with the issue of drugs. And some of my guests have been having problems with their internet connection, but Mrs. Tega has come to the rescue. Now, Mrs. Bello, you're a therapist. What are the things that you've been seeing in the course of your treatment? What can you say to a parent who is watching today? What are the symptoms that they can see in a child before? Because what we've discovered is that most times parents don't get to know until the issue gets out of hand. What are the symptoms that you can see in a child as a therapist that will send a signal to the parents that this child needs help?
Okay, there are a lot of symptoms to watch out for. When your child keeps wearing dark glasses, for example, he keeps covering his eyes. Broad daylight, he's wearing glasses. In the house, he's wearing glasses. Watch out, try to see what's happening. Because most times when children or teenagers are on drugs, they have this kind of thin eyes, dark, sometimes is bloodshot, depending on the kind of drugs. That wear long sleeves. They don't wear short sleeves. They are rosy or change of personality. Watch out for that, because long sleeve means that they are trying to cover maybe needle pricks and all that. Another thing to also watch out in and playful, and then all of a sudden he's always wanting to be secluded, always wanting to be in his room, always wanting to be alone. He doesn't want to go to social functions. So you're like, can you still hear me?
Yes, we're struggling with your connection, but we can.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so if the child begins to avoid going out to social functions, so you're like, let's go to this party. He says, Mommy, no, don't worry, go. Or Daddy, no, don't worry. So he wants to avoid going out with the family. He wants to avoid going out to places he usually loves to go to. Watch out, something is not right somewhere.
Okay, so I'm going
And
to open
then
up.
another thing is if he's always having.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay.
No, yes, go ahead. You were saying another thing.
Okay, so if he's always having infection, yes, if he's always having infection of the throat or of the nose, this comes from constant sniffing of these substances. So if the child is always having runny nose, is always coughing, and skin infections, watch out for skin infections, constant skin infections that refuse to go. These are all signs to watch out for that something isn't necessarily right. And then you want to take that child to run some tests or ask some questions.
Okay, so let's get some practical experience. Tega, did you experience any of these issues that Mrs. Bello mentioned?
Well, absenteeism, absolutely. Using sunglasses everywhere. I'm still a sunglasses girl, but now I use it only in the sun. But because I always needed to hide, what I was looking like. And then I used to also be quite unkempt. I'm a girly girl, I'm not a tomboy. So, but I used to be very unkempt. I'll just be I couldn't care less what I looked like. I think I had a cough for such a long time. I had a cough for such a long time, and that was one of the reasons it was easy to deceive people. When I'm going to buy cough syrup, I just start coughing in the pharmacy, and then let me just take and be going. So I did experience that. I did experience runny nose for quite a bit, and I was excusing it to the fact that my father had cold quite a bit. I think he was asthmatic. So I used to just say, I have cold like my father. Those were the things that I was using to cover up the things that were wrong with me at the time. Yes. So
okay, I have more questions, but I want to open up the line now for our audience. Quite a number of you have signed in, and much more than I saw on the registration platform. Thank you for doing that. Please, if you have a question, there are three ways you can ask a question. Number one, you can post that question on the chat box, which you have access to. Number two, you can also send the question on the Q&A corner, which you have access to, or you can lift up your hands electronically. If those of you who know how to do that, if you lift up your hands, I'll be able to open up the microphone for you to ask questions directly in your own voice. I have just about 11 minutes to end this webinar. And for those of you who are interested, I'm recording this so that we can repost it and make sure that everybody hears about it. While we're expecting questions from our audience, Mrs. Bello.
Yes, please.
Obviously, from what both of you are sharing, there are likelihood of erratic behavior from either social user or addicted user. Can you outline some of those erratic behavior? I'm not a psychologist, but from what I gathered from both of you, there's a likelihood of erratic behavior either from the child user or adult user or an aged user. Can you elucidate? Can you tell us some of those behaviors?
Okay, yes. It actually depends on the kind of drug the person is taking. Some drugs are depressants. So what does it mean to be a depressant? It means that it just calms the person down. So it just puts them in this state of extreme calmness that, nothing matters. So it's not like they are erratic, but they are just calm. They are just sedated. Maybe a lot of stress, or maybe they have a lot of worry. That why there are some drugs that put you in this euphoric state, this state of excess happiness, excess passion, excess, that euphoria, it puts them in that euphoric state. While there are some drugs actually that when you continue to take, it then begins to have serious mood swings for them. And this is where the erratic changes you are talking about comes into play. So for some, they go into depressive states. When they go into depressive states, they can go into what we call like the kind of bipolar depression, in which one time they are sad, extremely moody, and the other time they are extremely hyper. And when they get this hyper, they can do what we call risky sexual behaviors. So they would go for one night stands. They would, anything is sketch if it's a man, and if it's a woman, any guy that comes to ask, they get loose. Let me use that word, loose, at that point. So they can go into shops, buy everything they don't even need, spend their last kobo on what they don't need because they are high on that drug, and then their mood is manic. We call it the manic state. So they go into that manic state and then they just do all sorts of things. When they come down, because of course there's always withdrawal, when the drug is getting out of your system, then you drop down and go into this withdrawal state. When they go into withdrawal states, so depending on the kind of drug, the withdrawal can be very horrible. Sometimes some are shaky, some are sweaty, some are hallucinating, they are seeing things, they are hearing voices, someone is pursuing them. I had one person who was telling me the night practically stark naked, hearing voices that weren't there, running, hearing someone say they are following her and all that. So when they continue to use, it gets to a point that some people, not all, but some will get to that state that they have those feelings and they begin to, so it puts some people to have what we call schizophrenia. That is, like a kind of psychosis. So they hear voices, they see things that are not there and all sorts. So it actually depends on the individual. It depends on the kind of drug. It depends on the duration. It depends on when the person actually starts using. The earlier the person starts using, the more danger, the more the negative consequences. So if someone starts to use like from 21 years up, they have 40% less chance of getting addicted, and they also have they have better prognosis. But when people start lesser than 21, so
you cannot talk about your character and not talk about how you respond when there is external pressure. In simple terms, it is your energy.
I think you're playing something that is coming out of your environment. Are you playing something at the background?
Yeah, something just came up. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so Mrs. Bello, go ahead and round up. Hello, Mrs. Bello, can you hear me?
Okay. So yes, I can hear you. So for individuals who start like maybe 14, 15, 16, any age less than 21 years, they are more likely to get addicted, and their prognosis is usually not so good. So that's why advocacy, and make sure that we let and kind of find a way to delay it, that they don't get to use, if at all, until when they are 21. And then even at that point, for legal drugs, it should not used at random. I hope that that answers
it's deliberate. It's deliberate. I've not gone into treatment. It's deliberate because I want to establish two basic things that we will accomplish on this broadcast. Number one is causes. What are the causes? And then we'll talk about the effect. So on next week broadcast, we'll focus on solution. And, but then I still want us to talk about, what are these substances and abuses or drugs that you haven't mentioned before that you suddenly have remembered, Mrs. Taker?
Are we talking about the street names now or regular substance?
Please, street names. Tell me anyone that you haven't said before.
Okay, well, like I said, codeine, okay, for cocaine, for instance, it can be called Nora, it's called Charlie, Mojo, or Flakes. Heroin, of course, they call brown sugar, they call it Italian. Then tramadol is TM, they call it blue. There's something I keep telling parents, when you hear your child saying Baba Blue, your child is not talking about the sweets. It's not the lemon, Vicks, Baba Blue, no. When they're saying blue, they're talking about Rohypnol. Tramadol is TM or trams. Codeine is cocoa as well. It's called Cody or schoolboy. Crack is candy, or it can be called rock. Then the sniff gum, the gum that they use, shoemakers use, shoe repairers, they use that, and then they call it solution or they call it diamond. And these days I hear that
it's gum. It's gum. Does it make anyone? Does it have the capacity to make anyone high?
I think the pungent smell. I think it's Coach Hawa is the one that's able to answer that, because that really pungent smell, I'm not sure what it is that it does to the brain, but that's what I realized, that a lot of bike boys, all those boys on bikes, when they are, you see them put a handkerchief over their nostrils, they are not protecting themselves from the excessive dust that is in the air. They actually have soaked their handkerchiefs with these things, and they've tied it on their nose. So as they're riding, they're inhaling the thing. These days, they inhale the fumes from fire extinguishers. These days, they are using Oreptal, the blood tonic, and drinking it in large quantity to be able to get some form of high. They're also scrapping wood. They'll scrap the wood and burn it and then smoke it. There is a lot of things that they're doing. And then the most recent one is the gutter water. Well, it's not so recent. It's been there for a while. And it's like a Chapman-like drink. It's a combination of codeine, retinol, blackcurrant drink is the base. So it gives it that color. Blackcurrant drink, it has codeine, it has crack, it has heroin, it has retinol, and it has tramadol, shaken together, and marijuana. Shaking together, press down, shaking together. And then one of these things has a crazy effect on you, on your mind, on your brain, not to talk of the combination of these substances. So that's the one that they're using now. And then the edibles, of course, that's the brownies. They're doing this because in their minds, they're not actively using the drugs actively. They're thinking that, well, I'm not, after all, I'm not shooting up. I'm not smoking directly. I'm not injecting myself. That's what shooting up is, injecting themselves. I'm not injecting, I'm not sniffing, I'm just sipping something. So I tell people that if you see your child with a bottle of Coke or a bottle of Chapman that is refusing to finish, please look closely at that bottle of Coke. There has to be more to it, because these days they just pour codeine in drinks. And then when they're drinking, they just keep sipping it all day. They just keep topping it and sipping it all day.
Mrs. Tega, I'm blown away. Did you say gutter water? Water
that's the street name. That's the street name, actually.
Okay, so it's not water. It's not physically the water from gutter.
No, it isn't. That's why I explained what's inside. Yes, it's a street name for the cocktail of drugs. And the cocktail, the base of this cocktail is blackcurrant juice. And so blackcurrant, they put codeine in it, they put marijuana in it, they put Rohypnol or tramadol in it, they put crack or heroin, one of them, or cocaine, mix everything and drink.
Okay, and my time is up. I'm glad that we're convening again next week. But on a final note, Mrs. Bello,
yes, please.
Tega raised a very important issue, and that's the issue of what is it in the codeine that makes these addicts high?
Okay, it's a psychoactive drug. So psychoactive drugs were actually just like the inhalants she was talking about. These inhalants are psychoactive. So what we mean by psychoactive, it means that they activate your brain neurotransmitters. So your neurotransmitters are activated, they release, depending on the mechanism of the particular drug, is either they release dopamine or they block dopamine from coming in and all that. So different drugs have a way that they stimulate the brain and then create euphoria or calmness or whatever it is that the person is seeking. However, I want to talk about something she hasn't mentioned, which actually is also drugs that people abuse a lot, especially the working class people. And this is over-the-counter drugs.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Drugs such as sleeping meds, like you have, and that's why some of these drugs are now strictly on prescription. You don't just get them anyhow. Painkillers, there are some painkillers that people abuse. They use them a whole lot. So it's not only the cocaine, the codeine, the heroin and all that, but a lot of over-the-counter drugs are being abused, especially,
Okay.
Okay,
we'll talk about that. I'm out of time, but then I want to ask you, what does coffee, what effect does coffee have?
Okay, yeah, coffee too has some effect, although we don't put it at the same level with all these other psychoactive drugs, even though coffee, which is caffeine, is in the diagnostic manual that we use, but it's not at the same level. You get withdrawal symptoms from the use of coffee to some level, and you can get tolerance to some level. However, it's not like these other drugs. Though we do tell people that if you know you get withdrawal and you get tolerance from caffeine, you should stop using it or reduce it. But it's not at the same level with all this heroin and cocaine and all that.
Okay, I'm asking because I love coffee. I'm not addicted to it. I can do without it, but I love coffee.
Okay.
All right.
It's
But
fine.
anyway, I want to thank both of you ladies, and I'm so grateful to both of you. Mrs. Steger, you are an inspiration, and I would want to see you write a book out of this if you don't have one, but you are a huge inspiration, and thank you, Mrs. Bello, for the great work that all of you are doing. Chris is not able to join us, but then I try to, as much as possible, to stay within the time. I'm actually on top of the time by 4 minutes. But I want to thank you, ladies, and I'm sure we will all meet next week. If I can bring all of you to where I am, because my internet connection is very strong, it will be a great thing if you guys can come over, and so that we don't have this internet or power problems. But thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. God bless you. And those of you who are watching, I'm sure you have learned something today. And please, there is also an opportunity for you, if you are a Christian, to also bring these things to prayer. And I'm sure if you're also a Muslim, like my sister Bello, also seek for spiritual help as much as, but spiritual help is one. You also need medical help. So thank you so much for being part of the program. Thank you, and God bless, and good night.
It's exciting, it's educative, and engaging. Get master information on Wisdom Masterclass webinar, 7 o'clock every Sunday evening with your host, Jake Ebele, CEO and founder, the Albino Foundation. Wisdom Masterclass webinar, live on Zoom, Facebook, and other social media platforms. Topics that will stir you up, take you right to the next level. For more information, send email to jake at financial trade. Don't be dull. Get wisdom only on Wisdom Masterclass webinar, poised to take you to the next level.
Okay, Mrs. Steger, thank you so much. Thank you. We'll meet again next week and continue. But I want to say that you are a huge inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, sir. Thank you.
Okay.